At first glance, the women's 200 meters final at the Islamic Solidarity Games in Riyadh looked predictable. Two Bahrain athletes entered the race with the fastest personal bests in the field, including global 400-meter star Salwa Eid Naser, and most fans expected a comfortable victory. But once the gun fired, the race quickly turned into something completely different. In this video, we take a detailed look at one of the most interesting sprint races of the competition and explain why the final result was far more complex than many people realized. This was not simply a battle of speed. It became a contest between two completely different approaches to the 200 meters. One athlete attacked the curve with raw power and aggression, while another relied on patience, balance, and technical precision. We will break down how Edidiong Odiong managed to take control of the race during the most important phase of the sprint and why Salwa Eid Naser struggled to maintain her early momentum. The difference between the two athletes became especially visible in the final straight, where mechanics, relaxation, and energy distribution completely changed the outcome of the race. The video will also focus on the hidden details that casual viewers often miss: body position on the curve, stride rhythm under fatigue, transition into the straight, and the tactical mistakes that can cost even elite athletes valuable tenths of a second. These are the moments that separate winning performances from disappointing results. Beyond the fight for gold, we will also analyze the battle for bronze and explain how consistency and smart pacing helped other athletes maximize their performances against stronger opponents on paper. Even without world-leading times, this final became a strong example of why sprinting is one of the most technical events in athletics. This race proved once again that, in the 200 meters, intelligence and execution can sometimes be more important than pure speed alone.
200 meters for women here. And who is in the first? Here we go. Edidiong is in the first place. Anita from Nigeria is getting the first place here. Here was the result for the first round. Anita from Nigeria.
Those attempts have been scratched. Right, now let's turn our attention to the women's 200-meter final. Two runners from Nigeria, two from Bahrain. The quickest time belonging to Odiong, Edidiong Odiong of Bahrain, in terms of personal bests. And also Salwa Naser, a quick time for her as well. So you'd expect one of the Bahraini girls to cross the line first, certainly based on personal best times. But that's not always how it pans out. So Bahrain in lane 2, Bahrain in lane 7, Nigeria in lane 1, and Nigeria in lane 6.
2025 مليئة بالتفاعل والذكريات الجميلة لكل الأعمار.
Thompson Omokwe, who we saw just a little bit earlier tonight, getting a medal around her neck for the 4x100 meter relay final.
For the women's 200 meter final.
في الحارة الأولى ممثلة جمهورية نيجيريا الاتحادية.
Lane 1 representing
So she goes.
Nigeria, Maria
Omokwe, Maria Omokwe in lane 1.
وفي الحارة الثانية ممثلة مملكة البحرين.
Favourite
Lane 2
Salwa Naser of Bahrain goes in lane 2. She too has already picked up a medal this evening for the relay.
Lane 3 representing
Azerbaijan
Republic of
and
Azerbaijan.
Valieva go in lane 3.
في الحارة الرابعة ممثلة جمهورية غامبيا.
Lane
From
4
the Gambia.
representing Republic of Gambia.
Isatou Sey, she goes in lane 4.
في الحارة الخامسة ممثلة جمهورية الكاميرون.
From
Lane
Cameroon,
5 representing
Tonjok,
Republic
Polly
of
Tonjok.
Cameroon.
She goes in lane 5.
Tonjok.
في الحارة السادسة ممثلة جمهورية
In
نيجيريا
lane
الاتحادية.
6, Anita
Lane
Enarua,
6
the
representing
second of the
Republic
Nigerians.
of Nigeria, Anita Itohan Enaruna.
في الحارة السابعة ممثلة مملكة البحرين.
In lane 7, it's the second of the Bahrainis, Edidiong Odiong. Keep an eye on her in this race.
في الحارة الثامنة ممثلة مملكة
And
المغرب.
in lane 8, it's the Moroccan Sarah El Hashimi.
Sarah El Hashimi.
سباق 200 متر نهائي فئة السيدات.
This is the women's 200-meter final.
So the women's 200-meter final is about to get underway here at the Prince Faisal bin Fahad Stadium in Riyadh.
On your marks. Set.
And they're away.
ينطلق السباق.
The final of the women's 200 meters. Who will come off the bend first? Odiong in lane 7 is going very strong indeed, the Bahraini, as she heads down the back straight. It's going to be Odiong of Bahrain. Odiong of Bahrain comfortably across the line from her colleague, I think, Salwa.
The women's 200 meters final at the Islamic Solidarity Games in Riyadh may not have featured the deepest field in global sprinting, but the race itself revealed several important details about speed management, race execution, and the difference between raw talent and technical efficiency. On paper, this looked like a straightforward battle between two athletes representing Bahrain, Salwa Eid Naser and Edidiong Odiong. Both entered the final with personal bests in the low 22-second range, clearly ahead of the rest of the field. However, the final results showed that reputation and personal records alone are never enough in the 200 meters. Before the race, Salwa Eid Naser appeared to be the biggest favorite. Her personal best of 22.45 immediately made her one of the most experienced and dangerous athletes in the lineup. Even though she is globally recognized primarily as a 400-meter specialist, her speed over 200 meters has always been strong enough to dominate regional competitions. At the same time, Edidiong Odiong came into the race with an even slightly faster listed personal best of 22.43, making the matchup between the two Bahrain athletes the central storyline of the final. The rest of the field entered with season and personal bests mostly between 23.5 and 24 seconds, which suggested that the race for gold would likely be separated from the battle for bronze very early. Athletes from Nigeria, Morocco, Cameroon, Azerbaijan, and the Gambia were competitive at the regional level, but based on the numbers alone, it was difficult to imagine anyone challenging the top two if both performed near their best level. As soon as the race started, it became obvious that Salwa Eid Naser planned to attack the first half aggressively. That approach makes sense considering her background in the 400 meters. Athletes from the longer sprint disciplines often rely on building momentum and maintaining high velocity for an extended period. On the curve, Naser looked powerful and controlled, immediately putting pressure on the rest of the field. Her stride length and physical strength stood out right away. However, the women's 200 meters is not simply a shorter version of the 400. It requires a completely different balance between acceleration, relaxation, and rhythm. One of the biggest mistakes athletes make in the event is overcommitting too early on the curve and losing efficiency once they enter the home straight. That is exactly where the race began to shift. Edidiong Odiong ran a much more measured and technically disciplined race. Instead of forcing the pace immediately, she stayed composed through the curve and maintained cleaner sprint mechanics. Her shoulders remained relaxed, her stride turnover stayed consistent, and most importantly, she preserved energy for the final phase of the race. While Naser appeared explosive early, Odiong looked more economical. Once the athletes entered the straight, the contrast between the two race models became clear. Naser started losing fluidity in her movement. Her upper body became tighter, and her stride lost some of its smoothness. Odiong, on the other hand, continued accelerating naturally. Her cadence remained sharp, and she looked significantly more efficient over the final meters. That difference in race management ultimately decided the outcome. Edidiong Odiong crossed the line first in 22.99, becoming the winner of the women's 200 meters final. Although the time itself is not world-class by international championship standards, it was still a very solid performance within the context of this competition. More importantly, it demonstrated intelligent race execution rather than simply superior physical ability. Salwa Eid Naser finished second in 23.52, a result well below her personal best and below expectations considering her status entering the race. The performance highlighted an important reality in sprinting. Elite athletes cannot rely entirely on strength and reputation. Even world-class competitors can struggle when the pacing strategy does not match the demands of the event. Naser's aggressive opening phase ultimately cost her speed during the most critical part of the race. Third place went to Cameroon's Kalatam Herverge Tunjok in 23.60. Her race was perhaps the most stable of the entire field. She did not attempt to follow the early pace of the favorites, instead focusing on maintaining her own rhythm throughout the distance. That decision allowed her to stay composed late in the race and secure the bronze medal comfortably. Considering the level of the top two athletes on paper, this was a strong overall result for the Cameroonian sprinter. Another important observation from this final was the overall pace of the race. None of the athletes managed to approach their lifetime best performances. That could be explained by several factors including weather conditions, track surface, stage of the season, or simply the fact that many athletes were not at peak form. Nevertheless, even without exceptionally fast times, the race clearly exposed the technical differences between the athletes. The final also reinforced how critical the second half of the 200 meters has become in modern sprinting. Winning today is not only about maximum speed, it is about maintaining mechanics under fatigue and staying relaxed while others tighten up. Edidiong Odiong executed that better than anyone else in the field. Her victory was built on efficiency, patience, and technical discipline rather than emotional aggression or raw power. In the end, the women's 200 meters final in Riyadh was not remembered for a historic time or a dramatic photo finish. Instead, it served as a perfect example of how smart sprinting often defeats uncontrolled intensity. Odiong understood the demands of the race better than the rest of the field, and that understanding carried her to gold.